This is the wild story of John Barnett, a Boeing whistleblower who bravely spoke out against their safety standards, and shortly after, he was found dead in a hotel parking lot. In this video, we're going to look at John's story and also investigate his untimely death. For nearly 3 decades, Barnett dedicated his life to building safer airplanes. He really loved his job, and he believed in their mission. But when he raised red flags about what he saw inside Boeing's South Carolina plant, the company didn't thank him. Instead, he was pushed out. He was worn down and dragged through years of legal battles. And then, just before finishing his deposition against Boeing, he was killed. This isn't just a tragic ending, it's a warning, because Barnett's story asks urgent questions. What's the cost of speaking out against a corporate giant? And is free speech really protected when it threatens billions of dollars? And perhaps most chilling, how safe are the airplanes we board every day? In his final hours, Barnett left a note, one final message: "I pray Boeing pays." This is a story about courage, retaliation, and silence, about the mental toll of doing the right thing, and whether the systems meant to protect whistleblowers are broken beyond repair. Because sometimes telling the truth can cost everything. John Barnett wasn't raised to look the other way. He grew up in Louisiana, where his mother Vicky had taught him and his brothers to stand up for what was right, even if it meant standing alone. As a kid, he once admitted to throwing rocks at an abandoned house when a preacher's son lied to a cop. That honesty, well, it stayed with him for life. After serving briefly in the military, Barnett found his calling in aerospace. He worked on the space shuttle projects at Rockwell before joining Boeing in 1988. To him, wearing that Boeing badge was a badge of honour. He told friends it made his chest puff out with pride. Boeing was the gold standard. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. That was the saying. And for Barnett, quality wasn't just a job, it was a responsibility. He became a quality assurance specialist, meticulously checking planes for safety issues, ensuring every bolt, wire and document met strict FAA standards. To his family, he was simply Mitch, but to Boeing, he became a guardian of the details that kept people safe at 30,000 feet. A man who believed that doing the right thing mattered, especially when lives were on the line. In 2010, John Barnett was given an opportunity that seemed like a dream. Boeing was opening a brand new plant in Charleston, South Carolina to build its revolutionary 787 Dreamliner. Barnett was invited to help set up the quality control systems from scratch. It was a promotion, a vote of confidence. But what he found when he arrived shook him. The plant was fast-tracked and understaffed. Many of the workers were new to aviation, and the culture, well, it was about speed and not safety. Barnett quickly saw issues: improperly stored parts, metal shavings left near sensitive wiring, and employees inspecting their own work. It wasn't just sloppy, it was dangerous. He raised alarms over and over again, and instead of gratitude, he was met with resistance. Managers told him to stop documenting issues. Some mocked him for slowing things down. He was told to be a team player, to work in the grey. But to Barnett, there was no grey. It was black and white. Safety first, or our lives could be lost. The plant represented a turning point, not just in Boeing's operations, but in Barnett's entire life. He went from proudly wearing the company's logo to fearing what might happen if nobody took him seriously. By 2017, the pressure on John Barnett had reached a breaking point. He had spent 7 years trying to raise internal concerns at Boeing's South Carolina plant, and instead of being listened to, he was just pushed aside. He was reassigned, he was isolated. Managers reportedly mocked his insistence on protocol. One allegedly told him, "I'm gonna push you until you break." And that year, Barnett decided to retire early, but his fight was far from over. He filed formal whistleblower complaints, one with the FAA for safety violations, and one with the OSHA, alleging retaliation. In both, he laid out a disturbing picture: defective parts possibly being reused, self-inspections by mechanics, and procedures being bypassed to keep production on schedule. Boeing denied the allegations, but some of his safety claims were later partially validated by regulators. His legal battle was long and exhausting. Boeing fought back hard, denying retaliation, questioning his performance, and even filing counterclaims against him over internal documents. Barnett said the process gave him PTSD. Every deposition, every interview, he relived the worst years of his life. But still he kept going, because in his mind, this wasn't just about him. It was about the flying public, and people boarding planes, never knowing what corners might have been cut. Barnett's life after Boeing wasn't quite a retirement. It was a daily battle with anxiety, isolation, and the shadows of the past. He moved back to Louisiana, trying to find peace. build a pool for his nieces and nephews, and spend time with his family. But behind closed doors, toll was heavy. He struggled to fill out job applications, haunted by panic attacks. He told his lawyer he feared ending up back in a toxic work environment. Years passed and the legal case dragged on. The OSHA dismissed his retaliation complaint, sacking a lot of evidence. But Barnett wasn't ready to let it go. He appealed. The FAA had partially backed his safety concerns, and that gave him hope. He still believed the truth would come out. He filled his house with legal documents, notes, boxes. He'd spend hours combing through them, preparing for trial. His mother said he looked older than his brothers, and that he was shrinking under the weight of it all. Then in 2024, 7 years after he left Boeing, the case was finally moving. A deposition was scheduled, and Barnett picked up his truck and drove 14 hours to South Carolina. But little did he know, that would be the last trip he ever made. John Barnett checked into a Holiday Inn just off the highway in Charleston, South Carolina. He was there to give his deposition, finally a chance to tell his story under oath. But this wasn't just any legal proceeding. In the years leading up to that moment, Boeing's public image had taken massive blows. First, the two tragic 737 crashes, the Lion Air Flight 610 and the Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302, killing 346 people. Then just weeks before Barnett's deposition, Alaska Airlines Flight 1282 suffered a terrifying mid-air decompression when a door plug blew out. Investigators uncovered serious lapses in manufacturing. Boeing was under serious public scrutiny, and John Barnett had predicted it all. He had predicted all of this. Suddenly, his testimony threatened to expose internal failures at a time when the company's stock was really sliding. Regulators were circling, and the public was seriously losing faith. The pressure wasn't just legal, it was existential. Orders for planes were getting cancelled every day. And then came 2 grueling days of questioning, first by Boeing's lawyers, and 7 hours of combing through his contradictions, and then by his own team. Exhausted, he asked to leave, but he didn't want to delay the trial, and he agreed to return the next day. But he never showed up. John Barnett was found dead in his truck, a gunshot wound to the head. A note beside him read, "I pray Boeing pays." John Barnett's story is more than just a tragedy. It's a reflection of how powerful systems react when threatened. When someone like Barnett with decades of experience documents their concerns, can they become a liability rather than an asset? And what does that say about Boeing? About the lengths institutions will go to silence the truth. In the wake of 2 deadly crashes and a mid-air door failure, Barnett's allegations weren't just credible, they were prophetic. And he raised alarms about defective parts, poor documentation, a culture that prioritised production over people. And as each new incident unfolded, the weight of his words only grew. His deposition wasn't just a footnote, it was a powder keg, one that could have pushed Boeing into further crisis, and triggered more investigations that led to accountability at the highest levels. But instead of answers, we're left with silence, a deafening silence, and a man lost. John Barnett gave everything to protect others. His job, his peace, and ultimately his life. He wasn't a rebel or a radical. He was a loyal Boeing employee who believed in safety, procedure, and integrity. And ultimately, he wanted the best for the product. And when the world needed to hear the truth most, when Boeing's safety record was collapsing and lives were being lost, he stepped forward and was silenced. And it nearly brought the company to its knees. And that's why his death matters, because it didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened in the eye of a storm moment when his voice could have changed everything. So, what do you think? Do you think that whistleblowers like John deserve to be heard? Well, if you do, comment below and let us know your thoughts. We should demand transparency, because if his story fades into silence, it won't just be a loss of justice. It'll be a green light for silence and complicity everywhere. And if you enjoyed this story, please leave a comment below and subscribe. We're a new channel and we need all the help we can get. We release free documentaries every week, so subscribe and stay tuned.